Aikwe, Neknamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian, and today I'll be talking about my review of The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. The Warm Hands of Ghosts was published by Del Rey Books on February 13th, 2024, and was one of my anticipated book releases for 2024 that I have also listed in my February most anticipated releases. And happened to pull a card that allowed me to pre-order this book for the month of February. If you don't know, I do a Pokemon cards choose my TBR type game that each Pokemon type has a prompt attached to it, and then I look for a book that best matches that prompt and try to fulfill it by the end of the month. And one of the Pokemon card types that I've given a prompt to, it's kind of like my go ahead and buy a new release anticipated book, and that tends to be like these full holo cards, the V or X. So I did get two technically for the month of February, and I chose The Warm Hands of Ghosts to fulfill that prompt. I did end up pre-ordering this through Libro because the covers, the UK cover and the US cover, are so vastly different. Both gorgeous in their own right, and it was just like, wasn't sure which I wanted. When it comes to audiobooks and eventually getting the physical copies, anything below a 3-star I don't tend to want a physical copy of. I'm not going to read it again. The reason why I get physical copies is because I have enjoyed it, and I enjoy it enough that with this that I think I will reread it sometime in the future. That has yet to be actually done, but I still like having the trophy of sorts of the physical copy on my shelves of like, yes, I've conquered this book. Within this review, I will be doing the US edition because after reading the book, after reading the book, I feel like this one best kind of fits the overall mood of the book, and I do have a physical copy coming to me. Yeah, it's been a little bit since I've done a review, so hi, hello. I like doing reviews. I know they're not the most popular thing ever, particularly for some reason non-Indigenous authored reviews on my channel. It isn't a very popular thing, but Indigenous authored reviews are, and I don't want to be boxed up. I read other things. So The Warm Hands of Ghosts, I did listen through Libro. We have Michael Crouch, who's done other audiobook narrations such as Chain Gang All-Stars and They Both Die at the End. We also have January Lavoie, who's done works like the Diviner series, as well as the 10,000 Doors of January. Pretty big titles. So The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. This is my first Catherine Arden. Catherine Arden has done other series, particularly the I keep forgetting the name of the series, but it's like the Bear and the Nightingale series. It's called the Winter Night series. But this is the first book that I have read from her, and I will say that I am a bit more curious about her work now. The reason why I was interested in this book is because of the synopsis. We are following Laura Ivan in January 1918. She is a field nurse in World War I and is very highly revered until she's wounded and discharged from the medical corps back to Halifax, Canada, leaving her brother in Flanders to fight. When she's back in Halifax, Canada, she ends up receiving a crate of her brother's stuff with a note saying that he died in combat, but with all the things that she found in the crate, his death doesn't make sense. So she starts asking around, but not getting a straight answer. To find the answers, Laura goes back to Belgium to work for a private hospital. There's rumors about haunted trenches and a strange hotelier whose wine gives soldiers the gift of oblivion. So Laura's trying to figure out what happened to her brother Freddie. We also are getting Freddie's perspective in November 1917 as he is trapped in an overturned pillbox with an enemy German soldier. When I first read the synopsis, that the first paragraph about Laura Ivan was the only thing I really needed to read. I didn't read Freddie's at all because I didn't want to be spoiled for it, but I also have this trepidation when it comes to books with alternate perspectives, just because I've read so many that have one perspective that it's entertaining, it's interesting, that's where the plot lies, and then the other one, the whole time I'm kind of bored and just waiting to go back to the first perspective. Always kind of a trepidation when it comes to any alternate perspective or alternate timeline books. But this one worked out really well in my opinion. We do get more of Laura's perspective throughout the book, but we do occasionally get Ivan's perspective. And though Laura's is technically ahead of time at 1918 and Freddie's is 1917, they do eventually kind of collide. And I never felt bored reading Freddie's perspective, even though like Laura's had all of their, you know, all of their history, all of their childhood. So to me, when it came, like Freddie's had a little bit of that towards the end, and it was really weird because he would reference it, which I got, but it would kind of make it seem like it wasn't necessarily his memories of their childhood, it was Laura's. So that's my only critique there, but other than that, I thought it was really well balanced. Like even though it felt like I'm pretty sure we had more of Laura's perspective, I feel like it was well balanced. Like despite having more of Laura's and less of Freddie's, like they worked out really well. And it was interesting to see how much Laura had changed, and not even changed, how Laura was different comparatively to other women within the time. She has a couple of friends, and to compare not only to friends that were not nurses and how different they were in terms of like being in regular society versus being a nurse in the field, but also just how being a nurse in the field changes you. Laura had grit. Laura kind of had spunk, and she was a bit more blunt than anything than other women could particularly handle. To kind of see that comparison of like how, particularly seeing injuries like you would in World War I, particularly where medicine wasn't as great and gangrene ran rampant, as well as other infections that would ultimately lead to death or losing a limb. I really enjoyed it. Well, not necessarily that part, but it was an interesting complexity to her character. I enjoyed that as well when it came to the side characters, though I will say, as complex as I thought they were, and how as much as I enjoyed figuring out each of their personalities, I kind of wanted more. I can't say that it's been a couple of weeks since I finished this book, so I don't remember the side characters' names at all, but there were elements within each of the side characters and I'm like, okay, like I get it, but something, and it felt like I had just gotten used to them, just figured them out, and then something would happen that was supposed to elicit an emotional reaction from me, but because I wasn't as connected to the characters as I had really wanted to be, I'm just like, well, that sucks, yeah, but it wouldn't be as emotional as I thought it could have been had I known the characters a bit more. But I understand too that wasn't necessarily the point of the book, that we are focusing on Laura and Freddie Ivan's sibling dynamic. I like the creativity Catherine Arden had. There were some creepy moments in there, like some haunting moments, particularly when it came to the paranormal. And of course, like the name of the book propped up a time or two. Not at the beginning. I hate it when it's like right at the beginning of like, oh, well, okay. But when it kind of crops up throughout, like towards the middle end of the book, it's like, oh, it's so satisfying. So yeah, I rated this 4.75 stars. I couldn't quite tell you why I necessarily didn't give it a 5-star, but it just didn't feel like a 5-star to me. I really enjoyed Catherine Arden's author note at the end explaining more of World War I and how complex it is and how like life-turning it was because of the time that it happened, during all these different industries bringing in new technology, particularly when it came to like medicine and military technology. And totally forgot, like I knew this when she said it, but it was just a reminder to, and that J.R.R. Tolkien created the Lord of the Rings based off of his experience during World War One, which makes me really curious about more World War One fiction. So if you have any recommendations, would love it. Throw some at me. I'll see if I'm interested or not. But yeah, that is my review for The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. I'd love to hear if you do have any recommendations in terms of like a jumping off point for historical fiction, particularly World War One or field nurses. Like, let me know. I'd be curious to hear. Otherwise, if you made it this far and don't feel like answering the questions, you don't have the spoons, let's go ahead and put a ghost emoji in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you have yet to do so, and I hope that you are in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading. I'll see you in another video very soon. Chew.